In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a patient and lab skills to your lab shifts. First thing you're going to need to do is get logged into your account, which will bring you to the dashboard. And then you're going to want to head to the skills tracker, which hover over shifts and click skills and patient care. Once there, you'll find your lab shift, which I've got here. And once that page loads, it's going to try and load as well the graduation widget, which also tracks your lab goals. So that will be more important for the lab shifts themselves. And then below that will be the lab practice items. And then the rest of the shift will actually look the similar to how we saw with clinical or field shifts. So we've got patients, you've got attachments, you've got shift evaluations. The only major difference is that there are no quick add skills in a lab shift. So if you were to add a patient in the lab, the patient again is going to be very similar to what you would see in a field shift, where it has the option for team leader, dispatch, as well as transportation, because we want these patients to be able to mimic either a clinical or a field shift, but just in the lab setting. There are, however, a few things that make a lab patient specific to lab patients. First is formative skills scenario versus summative skills scenario, or sometimes called individual skills practice versus comprehensive scenario slash testing. This is mainly used for the new Appendix G, which is a paramedic specific tracking method. So if you are an EMT or AEMT, you don't need to worry about that. And for the most part, for paramedics, when they are entering their lab patients, it will be with a formative skills. If your instructor says it should be summative, then you'll want to make sure to check that instead. The other difference is the subject type selector. So normally in a clinical or field shift, it's assumed that the patient is human live, so that is the only patient type option. In a lab, there are multiple options. There's human live, human dead, animal live, animal dead, or mannequin sim, mannequin other. So you would select whichever subject type most closely fits what you're doing in your lab shift, because it'll be important for some skills that track only for live versus any type of patient type. Otherwise, everything you fill out will be the exact same as you would if doing it in a clinical or field shift. Again, the only differences are the subject selector and then formative versus summative, which will be used for Appendix G for paramedic students. Back in the My Shift page will be the real meat of a lab shift, which was a lab practice item. So your program has set up various skills, and they may be using the default ones or they may have made custom ones that are meant for labs specifically. And part of that is they will be tracking evaluated you and whether it was successful or not, and they may do this by using a skill sheet. So if you click the drop down menu for selecting a lab practice item, and we say direct oral tracheal intubation adult, for example, it will load the skill sheet attached if there's a skill sheet, or it'll just ask who the evaluator was. Now, before we click go, I just want to remind you that when you see the lung and star icon, that's indicating airway management credit. So if this skill is done successfully for yourself, you'll get the airway management credit for this skill. So I'm going to click go. And in this case, there is a skill sheet attached, so it's going to load that skill sheet. First, you'll see the evaluator and the subject. Now, because we are logged into Michael's shift, Michael is automatically the subject. We can't change that. We can, however, change the evaluator. So he might be self evaluating, in which case you would leave it as this. You could click it and change and select a different student, in which case it'll be a different peer evaluation. Or you could change it entirely to instructor and select one of the instructors. And then now it's going to be an instructor sign off if they are successful. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it on student for the time being, and we can select Fisdap Jack, and then they'll go through and there'll be a scoring. In this case, it's not applicable as NA. 0 is completely unsuccessful. 1 is not competent yet, and then 2 is successful and competent. And for each step of the skill, they'll just indicate which option best fits it. For the PPCP 15 skill sheets, they do default to the 2. So assuming everything is done correctly, you won't need to make any changes when filling this out. There are critical criteria, so if any of these are triggered, then it will be a failure. So if I say we didn't do the proper PPE at the bottom, even though it's 100%, it's still marked as failure because one of the critical criteria was hit. You may also see comments, very similar to how the shifting valves may have comments as an option. Anytime there is an open text box in Fisdap, we are going to remind you to not put in anything that would violate HIPAA. And there may be some questions that don't actually affect the weight of it. For example, the student self evaluation, whether it was 1 or 0, it will not change the actual score itself. And some of these skills will have a cut score, so you'll need to get above that cut score to be passing. And then some may also allow the evaluator to set pass or fail, regardless of the score or the critical criteria or anything else. So, assuming everything is 100% and this all looks good, I'm going to go ahead and hit submit and close. And it'll bring us back to the shift itself, and now we have successfully done a oral tracheal intubation with a student as the evaluator. And now under lab goals, if I open airway, we'll see that for direct oral tracheal intubation adult, am at 16% because I've done one of my 5 for the goal for peer, which is the first one with the little 2 people, but I still haven't done any for the instructor sign off. So let's say we wanted to get that instructor sign off. I would go ahead and grab one of my instructors to evaluate me, and you would load it. And instead of saying student, I would select instructor. And let's say the Fisdap robot was my evaluator. And if I'm the one signed in as a student, then this skill will be unconfirmed unless an instructor confirms it, which they can do in the moment by clicking the confirm button and then entering their username and password. Or they can do later on by entering the shift as their instructor account and then confirming it from their side. Otherwise, let's assume everything is accurate. I hit submit and close. You'll see it loads it and it has now the instructor sign off. However, this circle is empty, meaning that it is unconfirmed. And you'll notice that until it is confirmed, we are not getting credit in the goals. We're also not getting the area management credit because you won't get the area management credit until it is confirmed. So to get it confirmed, I'll have to have an instructor come back into the shift as instructor and go ahead and confirm it. Again, though, if we were to enter the skill and have the instructor click the confirm while it's happening, then they can enter their username and password. And now it says confirmed in the upper corner. It'll be unconfirmed button if you need to unconfirm it for whatever reason. And then when we hit submit and close, we'll see that there's a check mark there showing it has been confirmed. You're getting the area management credit. And now we have 1 of 1 for our goal for instructor sign off. The rest of the skills, again, you'll just enter from the drop down, selecting either your peers for the evaluator or the instructor, depending on who is watching you do that skill. And once as you start to meet your goals here, the bar will increase from red to orange to yellow to light green to a nice dark green, showing completion. If you have any questions about entering skills into a lab shift or lab patients or anything else, please let us know. Our phone number is 651-690-9241, and our email is support@fisdap.net. Have a great day.